Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel for the latest edition of the Premier League betting show, and the first edition of 2025. Actually, we had a little bit of a hiatus over Christmas on this particular show while the darts took over my life and this channel to an extent. But by the time the lunchtime kickoff is underway, the darts will be in the books. So we're back to football here on the channel. If you're watching the Premier League betting show for the first time, well, my name is Matt Hill. I'm joined by my regular co-host, Brad Walker. And the idea of this show is very simple. We run through the upcoming slate of Premier League fixtures every Thursday, giving you some quick fire thoughts and betting tips on each game to hopefully point you in the direction of a few winners. Brad, how are you doing? How's your festive period been?
Yeah, all good, mate. As you can see, a different setting today. Still visiting family over Christmas, so a bit of a makeshift setup. But fingers crossed, like you said, it's a few weeks since we've done this, so we can hopefully get started in the new year with a few winners.
Yeah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I'm going to start things off this weekend. We're in with the early kickoff, which is Tottenham Newcastle. Always seems to deliver this game. And I think two kind of clubs who are probably similar in stature. And I've heard a lot of Tottenham and Newcastle fans sort of debating which club is bigger. It's that kind of game, isn't it? But there's definitely one team on form more than the other at the moment coming into this one. It is Newcastle, who have really got rolling now, haven't they? A bit of a slow start for Eddie Howe's men this season. But boy, they're up and running now. Won all four of their last games in the Premier League, scoring 13, conceding none, and firmly in the race for a top four spot, I would say, with all these other teams faltering around them. And yeah, it's really good positive times for Newcastle. Tottenham, on the other hand, they are enduring a bit of a disastrous campaign. I think the pressure is starting to mount actually on Ange Postecoglou, who felt untouchable early in his Tottenham tenure, but I definitely have heard a few sort of discerning voices in that Tottenham fan base in recent weeks getting a bit fed up with this kamikaze football and the goals that they're conceding. He cites injury concerns and a thin squad, obviously, which I think does have some credence, but ultimately results just have not been good enough for Tottenham recently. Last time out, another disappointing draw with Wolves 2-2. They probably had the better of that game, but ultimately failed to convert that into a result, which kind of sums Tottenham up this season. They've also shipped goals at an alarming rate as well, whereas Newcastle, as I say, 4 clean sheets now in the Premier League, 13 goals in those 4 games as well. And one man that just can't stop scoring is Alexander Isak. I'm going to keep this very simple. Isak to score any time. I can't believe his odds against 21-20. The Swede, he had a little bit of a slow start, like his club only scored once in his first 6 games, but he's now scored 11 in his last 12 matches, and he's scored in, I think it's 6 straight, including a hat-trick against Ipswich. He could well get himself into Golden Boot contention, given how much Erling Haaland has dried up. I mean, the Golden Boot looked cut and dry, didn't it, at one point, but it is very much back on the table now with Salah, Haaland and Isak, who's bundled his way into contention. He's scoring for fun. This Tottenham defence is conceding goals for fun. I would have had Isak odds on to score, given the form he's in and given the defence he's up against. I'm really surprised to see it odds against. So that will be my best bet for the opening game. Brad, over to you to start 3 o'clock for Bournemouth versus Everton.
Yeah, Matt, we'll start with Bournemouth. I think they're enjoying a great run in the Premier League, aren't they? They're now unbeaten, in their last 7, 4 of which they've won. That leaves them now in 7th place heading into the new year, only 2 points off 5th. So I think we say this every week, but it's a remarkable job that continues to be done down there by Andoni Iraola. Of course, they salvaged a point with a late equaliser and a 2-2 draw with Fulham last time out as well. Fulham themselves doing very well, so it's a great result for Bournemouth in the capital. They face an Everton side who have themselves impressed of late, to be fair, taken points from the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City, drawing with all 3 of those sides. But they did fall short to an albeit high-flying Nottingham Forest last time out in a 2-0 home defeat. I'm sure they'll be eager to pick up more points over the coming weeks, Everton, to distance themselves from that bottom 3. I think they're only 2 points above the relegation zone and right now, and a large reason for that, has been their inability to score goals. I don't think any sides scored less than them in 2024 in the Premier League. They're averaging less than a goal a game so far this season, and they've particularly struggled away. They're averaging 0.67 goals scored per game on their travels. That again piles pressure on their defence, which has conceded 1.67 away goals on average in away fixtures. So it's no surprise to see them win only 1 of their away matches so far this season. Bournemouth, on the other hand, have only lost twice at home. They've also beaten the likes of Arsenal and Man City at the Vitality this season. But having said that, their home fixtures do tend to be relatively low scoring. I think only 3 of their 9 home matches have seen over 2.5 goals scored. And Everton's away games also tend to be quite tight. I think only 3 of their away games have seen over 2.5 goals scored as well. So I do think Bournemouth will get the win. I think they come in at 4-5 on the winners line at the minute. I'm going to boost that price a little further by backing the Bournemouth win with under 2.5 goals scored. That comes in my opinion, quite a wide 10-3 generally across the board. I think it's more than a fair price given everything we've seen from these two so far this season.
I really like that. Under 2.5 goals in a Bournemouth win, 10-3. Nice juicy price to start the year. Hopefully can land that one. Well, back over to me for Aston Villa versus Leicester. And Villa have been very patchy in recent times, but you do still feel like on their home turf against a team like Leicester, they're going to have the better of things. They're generally a very dominant side. Unai Emery coming for a little bit of criticism, I see, from some Villa fans for the way he set the team up in recent weeks. But I think we just need to take a look at the wider picture of just what a job he has done there, and he's such a superb tactician that I do feel like he'll have his team set up to exploit a Leicester team who are really struggling under Ruud van Nistelrooy. He started with a win and a draw. Since then, it's been 4 damaging defeats, which have sucked them back into the relegation zone, unfortunately for Leicester. And you do worry about this Leicester side, don't you? They've got a lot of points on the board early on, and you thought maybe they'd given themselves a little bit of a buffer, but that has evaporated. They've been dragged back into the mire, and I would worry for Van Nistelrooy as well. If they continue losing at this rate, it could be a worryingly short tenure for him. I don't think we're quite at that stage yet, but he'll want to snap this losing streak pretty soon. This looks like a tough place to do it for me. And I saw a really nice angle into this game with the yellow cards market, or the bookings market. Leicester midfielder Boubakary Soumaré has been really among the yellow cards this season. Quite an amazing stat, actually, because he didn't really get into the team until the back end of October, but he's been booked 7 times in 12 games since coming in. 4 of those 5 yellow cards have been in the last 5 games. So clearly something with the way that Van Nistelrooy is setting the team up is leaving them a little bit short in midfield. And Soumaré, well, he's like a walking yellow card at the moment, to be honest. I really did think when I looked into the booking stats that he was going to be the favourite to be booked, but he's not. He's about 5th or 6th down in the list. 13-5 about Soumaré to be booked. And when you think how much Leicester's midfield have been struggling in recent weeks, going away to Aston Villa, who are going to dominate possession and have got some real quality in the middle of the park with McGinn, Tielemans, etc., I would not be surprised to see Soumaré have to commit a tactical foul again. He's already had a ban for 5 yellow cards. I don't think it'll be long before he gets his 10 yellow cards, 2-game ban. He's on 7, as I say, and I think he could well pick up another one this weekend at 13-5. Brad, back over to you for Crystal Palace versus Chelsea.
Yeah, we'll start with Palace. They returned to winning ways last time out with a 2-1 win over Southampton. That ended a 3-match winless run for Oliver Glasner's side. They've picked up since a pretty torrid start to the season. They're now 5 points above the relegation zone. That Southampton win was also their first in 4 matches at home. They'll also be boosted by the return of captain Mark Gay this weekend, who missed the last match through suspension, I believe. They welcome a Chelsea side who have hit a bit of a bump. I think it's fair to say in their last couple of games. They've not won any of the last 3 in the league, and that's included 2 consecutive losses to Fulham at home and then Ipswich away last time out. A couple of weeks ago, I remember they could have moved above leaders Liverpool with a win at Everton. They now trail Liverpool by 10 points heading into this weekend. And I think the poor results have actually left them looking over their shoulder at teams chasing them for a spot in the top 4. The likes of Newcastle and Man City aren't too far away at all. So all of a sudden, the pressure's on Enzo Maresca's side to get a win here. I think they'll be boosted significantly, to be fair, by their record against Palace. Chelsea remarkably have won 14 of their last 15 meetings with Crystal Palace in all competitions. The only exception actually was the 1-1 draw they both played out at Stamford Bridge earlier this season. That run has also included 6 consecutive victories at Selhurst Park. And so despite recent results, you've got to expect this Chelsea side and will have too much for Palace, given the wealth of options they have in forward areas as well, the form of Cole Palmer. He's doing it again. I think there were questions at the start of this season whether he could match what he did last year, but he's certainly doing that so far. So I'm going to go over Chelsea win, but to boost that price a little more, I'm going to go with both teams to score as well. Palace have scored in 5 of their last 6 home matches this season, and I think Chelsea have only got 4 clean sheets in the league so far this season as well. So Chelsea to win with both teams to score coming in at 12-5 generally. I think that price is shortening, so you want to get on that sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think there's plenty of value in that price given everything we've seen so far.
Does look a good chance for Chelsea to bounce back there, you have to say. Well, back to me for another 3 o'clock kickoff, which is Southampton at home to Brentford. Southampton absolutely detached at the bottom of the Premier League. It's been a dreadful campaign for them, as many feared. But Russell Martin, of course, did finally part ways with the club just around the Christmas period. They've not seen a pickup in results, but they have got a new manager in, Ivan Juric. He's not had a lot of time to work his magic with the side yet, but I think we've noticed definitely more of a focus on the defensive side of the game from Southampton, making them a little bit more difficult to beat. 2 1-goal defeats in their last 2 games to West Ham and Crystal Palace, respectively. But they have created a lot more chances in their games, and they look like a little bit of a better balanced team to me under Juric. And maybe they should have made that move a couple of months earlier to give themselves a fighting chance of staying up. It does feel like they're going to need a minor miracle now to bridge that massive gap between them and safety. They're only on 6 points, with Wolves in 17th on 16. So you really would need to be like European chasing form for Southampton to turn this round and stay up. But this looks like a decent opportunity for them against a Brentford side who are in a little bit of free fall themselves. They've lost 5 of their last 7, 4 of the last 5. The other game in that 5-game run was a 0-0 draw with Brighton. So given how well they started the season, I think they'll be disappointed with how things are going at the moment. Of course, they went 1-0 up against Arsenal, but managed to they didn't manage to hold on against the Gunners side, who were more than good value for the win, to be honest, at 3-1. And Brentford away from home, we all know the story. They've been pretty abject away from home this season. I don't think there's any cause for panic with Brentford. You know, they've got enough points on the board to not be roped into anything too scary. But I think daring to dream of Europe maybe a few weeks ago, that ship has possibly sailed now, unless they can arrest this sort of slump very quickly. They'll fancy the chances here. This is one of the more winnable away games, of course, but I actually think this is a good opportunity for Southampton and their new manager to get a rare win on the board here. And I'm not going to back them for the win. Instead, I'm going to back them for over 1.5 goals, which is an odds against 6-5. Like I said, Brentford travelled pretty dreadfully, and Southampton have created over a goal of XG in those 2 defeats to Palace, and West Ham scored against Palace as well, and definitely could have had an equaliser in that game. So I don't think a couple of goals against this shoddy Brentford away record is beyond a question. 6-5, that's my play for this game. One more 3 p.m. kickoff this week, and it is Man City, who finally got back to winning ways, and they're taking on West Ham, who are having a very up and down season. A big down last weekend, Brad.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, Man City winning 2-0 away at Leicester last time out, Matt, but I don't think they were too convincing, if I'm honest. I think Leicester, in fact, were probably unlucky not to leave at least a point, really. He still looked incredibly vulnerable on the back, particularly on the counter-attack. Far too easy to play through still. And they head to the Etihad as well, remarkably having only won 1 of their last 5 matches there. I don't think we'd have said that too often under Pep Guardiola and his time at the club. But they faced a West Ham side, though, as you touched upon there, who had put a good run together prior to a Liverpool match, the match with Liverpool, last weekend. They were unbeaten in 4 prior to kickoff at the London Stadium, but they were comprehensively outclassed, I think it's fair to say, in a 5-0 defeat to the league leaders. I think it was very worrying how open they were at the back as well. Even at half-time, where it looked a case of damage limitation for Julian Lopetegui, Liverpool was still running for on goal at will. Mo Salah himself could have had 3, 4 or 5 goals to his name alone. So, again, neither of these sides have been particularly impressive at the back in recent weeks. I mean, it could be quite an open game at the Etihad. I wouldn't be surprised to see goals in this one at all. I am going to edge in favour of City, though, with both teams to score, as I did with the Palace and Chelsea game. I think City, as I said, have been far from convincing lately, is probably an understatement. But the performance of West Ham at the back against Liverpool was incredibly alarming for me. It could have been 7 or 8 that day. And while City haven't exactly been themselves at home lately, you would think if they're afforded similar chances this weekend, that you'd have to back them to put them away. Erling Haaland as well now is back on the score sheet as well after a dry spell. He got the second at Leicester for City. So, yeah, I am going to go for the home side. But I do think City's own defensive woes will cost them in some form. I'm going to back West Ham to bag a goal before ultimately coming up short at the Etihad. That comes in at 6-4 generally, by the way. Man City win with both teams to score.
City winning both teams to score. Apparently, Lopetegui has 2 games to save his job, if you believe what you read in the papers. We've seen that before, though. But yeah, you've got to think his time is limited on how it's gone thus far. Well, the 5:30 kickoff sees Brighton host Arsenal, and another team who are seeing their promising season kind of combust a little bit are Brighton. Really big fan of the work that Fabian Hersl has done at Brighton. And with a run of draws, it's always how you want to spin it. They've drawn 5 of their last 7. So do you say they're on a solid undefeated run, or do you say that they're really struggling? Well, I think the fact that they had 2 losses in the other 2 games makes this a bad run for them. Winless in 7 all the way back to the end of November. Really disastrous festive campaign for them, really. You would have expected to beat Brentford at home when I referenced Brentford's shoddy away record, but that finished in a 0-0 draw. That was a good plucky point they got at Villa. Hersl says they're learning with every draw that they make, which is good manager speak, but probably not what fans want to hear when you haven't won in 7, I would suggest. Meanwhile, Arsenal, well, they're on a fantastic undefeated run, haven't they? They made that sloppy start to the season where they dropped a lot of points, but they've really recovered well, and they're keeping the pressure on Liverpool, which is all they can do. Arteta says all they can do is win their games and see what happens, and that is what they're doing now. They've won 4 straight. A good comeback performance at Brentford really put them to the sword in the second half with a couple of really nice finishes, and they come into this one full of confidence. I think this is a bad game for Brighton, trying to be snapping a long streak without a victory. I do see Arsenal ultimately having too much for them in this game. I'm going to keep it quite simple here. Arsenal to win an over 2.5 goals is 13-8, which I think is more than fair. Keeps the Brighton goal on side. Brighton do tend to score at home. They've got some good good threat in attacking areas, as we know, with Adingra. Welbeck's having a good season, isn't he, again, and playing his former club here. But even if they do, you would think the way Arsenal are cutting through defences at the moment that Arsenal will have too much for them. So I can very much see this being a 2-1, 3-1 Arsenal, similar to the Brentford game. And I think you keep both of them on side with Arsenal win and over 2.5 goals at 13-8. On to Sunday then, triple header to finish us off, starting with Fulham versus Ipswich. Brad.
Yeah, Fulham, another side who are enjoying a great season. They're now unbeaten in their last 7 matches following that draw of Bournemouth last time out. I'm sure they've been disappointed to surrender the 3 points with that late goal conceded, but still enjoying a great season, as I say, currently sitting in 8th position, just 3 points off 5th. And remarkably, the last 3 home matches have ended in a draw, but I do think this is a fixture they'll be targeting a win from Ipswich, albeit with that great win over Chelsea, which I'll touch upon now. Still one of the sides lingering down the bottom. But that win over Chelsea was Ipswich's first home win of the season, which I'm sure Kieran McKenna would have been grateful for, not just because of the 3 points gained from it, but also because of the belief that it can instill for them moving forward as they look to survive their first season back in the Premier League. They do have a striker capable of scoring goals as well, Ipswich, and Liam Delap, who, of course, netted the opener from the spot against Chelsea, and I think he could be heavily involved again in this one. Fulham do tend to concede more goals at home. They're averaging 1.5 conceded at Craven Cottage compared to 1.1 away from home so far. They've also kept just 1 clean sheet in 10 at home this season, and they do give chances away against the so-called lesser sides in the league, I think it's fair to say as well, dropping points against the likes of Southampton and Wolves at home so far in the first half of the season. So again, turning attention back to Liam Delap, he had 4 shots on target against Chelsea, a whopping 4 shots on target. I think it's fair to say. I don't think many would have expected that, given Chelsea's performance overall this season. And of course, he did manage to score once. He also scored in the 1-1 draw these two sides played out earlier, I think it was at the end of August. And yet he comes in at a very wide 4-1 to have over 1.5 shots on target this weekend, which again, I was very surprised that to see that when I was putting my notes together for the show. I think there's plenty of juice in that price considering Fulham's poor record at the back and the positive form that he's in. I think he's already got 7 goals to his name this season. So yeah, Liam Delap over 1.5 shots on target at 4-1. That's where I'll be placing my money for this one.
Yeah, I've had some success with Liam Delap this season in the player props market as well. Long may that continue. Game of the weekend, as it should be. But Liverpool, Manchester United, you just don't know what it's going to serve up this at the moment, because Liverpool certainly in a better position than their great rivals. Ruben Amorim's arrival has not gone to plan yet for Manchester United. Obviously, very, very early to be judging him. He has inherited a little bit of a mess, but I think they would have hoped for an upturn in results better than what they've actually had thus far. Liverpool just continue to roll on meanwhile, don't they? And they've still got this 6-point gap at the top of the Premier League with a game in hand. So they'll be desperate not to give up any more ground. They got a very convincing win at Old Trafford back in September, 3-0. And generally they've had the better of it against Man United, maybe taking out that FA Cup victory for United, but generally speaking, it's been all Liverpool in this fixture for a little while now. There's been some humiliating results in there for United as well. I remember a 7-0 in March 2023, which was a particularly humbling experience for the Red Devils. But you struggle to see how Man United are actually going to stop Liverpool the way they're playing. But I do think, obviously, Liverpool are huge odds on favourites here, but I think I can just about get with chancing Man United to get on the score sheet at 8-5. This is a different kind of game to any other, isn't it? And you would expect United will try and lift their level. Amorim will not want to go down in humiliating fashion here, because that will just increase the pressure on him even more so. And I think United fans, as much as they won't say it, would maybe take a credible loss here in the circumstances. Going down 2-1 or 3-1 with a good performance is probably good for them in their current position, which is bonkers to say, really, but that is the reality of the situation. Meanwhile, Liverpool, I know they kept a clean sheet out last time against West Ham, but West Ham were unbelievably negative in that game in their setup, and they're in a really sort of poor moment themselves. The previous 4 Premier League games, Liverpool had conceded goals. Some of them conceded multiple goals. So they tend to, under Arne Slot, sort of manage games better, but that doesn't necessarily mean it'll always be with a clean sheet, certainly not in recent weeks anyway. So 8-5 about the Liverpool win with both teams to score looks the way to play it to me. 1 game left, and it is Nottingham Forest, who are absolutely flying high, must be starting to dream of the Champions League now. They're away to Wolves in Monday Night Football, Brad.
Yeah, I'll start with Wolves. I think they've experienced that so-called new manager bounce, haven't they, so far, which continued with that 2-2 draw against Tottenham last time out. I think Jurgen Strand-Larsen salvaged a point, didn't he, with a late equaliser down in the capital. Vitor Pereira now has taken 7 points from his opening 9 since taking charge at Molineux, which I'm sure will significantly boost their chances of survival after a torrid season overall so far. They're now 17th, 1 point above the drop zone. But as you said, they face the Nottingham Forest side, who are currently on cloud 9, I think it's fair to say. Former Wolves boss Nuno Espirito Santo heads them up, of course, and he'll be returning to Molineux on Monday with his side second in the Premier League after a phenomenal first half of the campaign. Forest have won their last 5 league matches on the spin, 3 of which were away from home, including victories at the likes of Man United, Brentford and Everton as well. And for all of Wolves' recent success under Pereira so far, I was stunned to see Forest come in odds against to win here. I'm sure Wolves have picked up in recent weeks, but Forest are on a roll and they're still coming up against the team in Wolves who have conceded the most amount of goals so far in the Premier League. Wolves will also, of course, be without Mateus Cunha, who's by far their best player. He's serving that 2-match ban for the instant after the defeat to Ipswich a few weeks back. So we're putting all that together. I'm going to keep this very simple and back the away win here. I think that comes in now at 7-5 generally across the board, and there's plenty of value there, I think, considering the great form that Forest are currently enjoying.
Definitely, and I think it's a case of the market maybe just expecting that this run can't continue for Forest for much longer. But I mean, there's nothing to suggest that they can't go to Wolves and win. And at 7-5, I think you can more than take a chance there, Brad. I like that one. So just to round off then with our best bets for this weekend, Brad, if I was going to put you on the spot and get you to pick one of your favourite bets for the weekend, which one would it be?
Probably just because the price is so widely and the lap. Fulham aren't. Well, they're having a great season, but defensively they've dipped a little bit at home. He's in good form too, and at 4-1, I think it's more than worth a punt. So I'll probably go for that one.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic season as well, and the lap bound to be linked with bigger clubs soon. You would think. Well, for me, I'll keep it very simple. I think Boubacar Samare has been booked in 7 of his last 12 games. He's 13-5 to get booked at Villa Park. I'd be very surprised if he's not in the thick of the action with a few tactical fouls against a Villa side that I just think is superior in every department to Leicester. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this week's Premier League betting show. Let us know what you fancy this weekend. We'd love to hear your match predictions or best bets in the comments. And we'll be back next week. We've got plenty more going on the channel. As I said, there's darts action looking ahead to tonight's semi-finals, tomorrow's final. We have the EFL betting show, which will be live on the Odds Now Twitter feed tomorrow lunchtime. So if you head over to our Twitter, that will be broadcast live, or you can watch the replay if you can't join us at the time. Well, thanks for watching. Let us know your best bet in the comments, and we'll see you again very soon.